What more could possibly go wrong? Well, here it is. Michael called me from his hotel, and I particularly remember this conversation because he blurted out some things that just left me speechless. We got on to talking about our parents who'd flown in along with Reby to see him perform. I hate Joseph so much, Michael said. But why, Mike? You've never felt this way before. I know you dislike Joseph, but I never heard you say I hate him or I can't stand him. I do hate him, Latoya, he replied with uncharacteristic venom. Let me ask you a question. If Joseph died tomorrow, would you cry? I didn't want to answer, though I knew my honest answer would be no, not at all. Mike, it doesn't matter. We should love him. And I do. If only because he's my father. And he's your father. He's not my father, Michael exclaimed bitterly. It was so strange to hear Michael talk like that. I thought back to an evening we spent at Jane Fonda's house just after she and her famous father had co-starred in the film On Golden Pond. Her relationship with Henry Fonda was very strained, to say the least, and it was apparent that it bothered her greatly. On Golden Pond is really our story, Jane admitted. My father and I have no communication at all. We don't even talk to each other. We don't even say hello. I don't know how to say to him, Daddy, I love you. It's very awkward. And when I'm around him, it's very strange. Michael and I felt so sorry for her, understanding exactly how she felt. Shortly before Henry Fonda died, Michael urged Jane, go see your father. Tell him how you feel before it's too late. For obvious reasons, it pained my brother that anyone should go through life distant from their father. But on this day in 1988, he wanted none of his own advice. Railing against Joseph, I'll never forget the times he hit Mother, he added. And I hate him for that. His words echo in my mind. Hit Mother? Most of my childhood memories were so vivid. Why didn't I remember that? You're lying, I said. Joseph may have done a lot of things, but he never hit Mama. He never hit Mother. But he did, Michael insisted. I saw it so many times. As soon as we hung up, I dialed Reeby's hotel to ask her if what my brother said was true. I wasn't prepared for her answer. Joseph used to hit her all the time, she said. I used to jump on his back and try to hit him over the head with my shoes to make him stop. Then he'd beat me too. Don't you remember this? That was back in Gary. No, I never saw that. Or had I? Sure you did. They had big fights all the time. The next day, I couldn't remember. I couldn't believe it. So the next day, when Jackie called, as he almost did every day, I couldn't refrain from mentioning what Michael and Reby had told me, that my oldest brother confirmed everything. Well, you were too young to remember, which is really strange to me because Toya is older than Michael. You were too young to remember what Joseph did, but I remember. Now he came forth with a torrent of anger, with the likes of which I'd never heard from him. By the way, in Latoya's opinion, her father really hated Jackie, his firstborn son. She didn't understand why he treated Jackie so different, why he was always so mean to Jackie. And the mother knew it, and of course she co-signed it because obviously she was afraid of Joseph too. Now he came forth with a torrent of anger, the likes of which I'd never heard from Jackie. That man is no good, Jackie said. He's never been a father. I look at him now and I know he never cared for us, any of us. And we're all still afraid of him. Do you know how badly I would feel if I knew my own son was afraid of me? I hate him. While I understood Jackie's bitterness, I could never bring myself to say those words about my father. In my own way, I still love Joseph. out of respect and wanting things to be the way they should be? I did. But intellectually, I knew that he didn't love me. But I needed to believe he could. As I began to see, even as an adult, part of you deep inside is always a child, always searching for the love that you need. I remember the first time my father said, "Latoya, I love you." It was over the phone in 1988, about 30 years too late. Stunned, I could only muster a hurried, "Okay, goodbye," and hung up the phone. When I told Janet, she replied, "Oh, he's so full of it. He makes me sick." She went on and on. Michael was astounded as I was, but skeptical, sneering, "I can't believe it. It's a fine time to tell you now. Who does he think he's fooling? Tough, he says that he's changing. He's around the house all the time now." Maybe he was changing, but it really didn't matter anymore. Still, Joseph was saying those 3 words was a headline news in the Jackson family. Michael and Janet wanted to know all about it. Michael especially pressed me for details. How he said it, the inflection in his voice, how was the tone. I must have imitated our father saying, "Latoya, I love you," a dozen times. "How did you feel when he said it?" Michael asked. Like it was a lie, I admitted. If you ask my parents and most of my siblings today, the Jackson family unity began crumbling either the day I left home or when I appeared in the Playboy magazine. Now, I see that our undoing was perfect, as a perfect family began decades before, and the seeds were planted and nurtured in Joseph's abuse, my mother's denial, and the lies that we all told ourselves and one another so that we can continue being a loving family. Since in our eyes Joseph was beyond anyone's control and mother was a victim just like us, we couldn't confront him or blame her. What really changed us was this deluge of revelations and my parents' attempts to dismiss them as unimportant. It was another manifestation of the insidious denial my mother and father lived by and had passed on to us. After this rash of outrage, most of my siblings went on back to what they were doing and what my parents always wanted us to do: excuse and rationalize. Excuse and rationalize. Wash, repeat, rinse. Wash, repeat, rinse. There were no confrontations or discussions or accusations or demands. Because I was the only one who brought it up, the only one to suggest that my parents were accountable for their actions, I will be branded as the troublemaker and made an outcast. While Michael was in New York for his 3 Madison Square Garden shows, my manager met with his manager, Frank DeLeo, and had assigned Jack the task of keeping Joseph away from the arena. Taking seriously my brother's threats not to perform if he spotted his father in the audience. DeLeo was extremely concerned that Joe Jackson would worm his way back into Michael's business. But by now my family had turned against Jack, believing he'd taken me away from them. In keeping with our lengthy history of denial, no one wanted to face the truth that I had left on my own free will and gladly. You know, I'm not going to go on anymore, but this book is filled with gems. It's filled with the language Uh, and I mean, it's filled with stories, tidbits, and language and experiences that those of us who have grown up in high conflict families can relate to. Those of us who have grown up in families where you're supposed to be seen and not heard, and to do what you're told and never question. Those oppressive families have different degrees. And the bigger the stakes sometimes, the bigger the secrets, the more abuse takes place. So because that really bothered me today, and I really wanted to, challenge the audience, challenge the people that are listening, especially my subscribers. What do you think abuse is? And how do you think that the first hands or the first teachers who set you up for what, in their opinion, is just parenting, especially black parenting, and how has that affected some of your relationships? All right, if you can go there, let me see you do it. All right, okay, you guys. Otherwise, what I want you to do is go out and make it a lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day. All right, see you next time right here in the mental house. Bye-bye.